Imagine a world where the United States suddenly takes over Greenland. Not just a military lease or strategic partnership, but a full takeover of the island, establishing control over its government, resources, and territory. This scenario might sound like a plot from a political thriller, but it raises fascinating questions about geopolitics, sovereignty, and the future of the Arctic region. Greenland, the world's largest island, currently an autonomous territory under the Kingdom of Denmark, has been attracting increasing attention from global powers. Its location in the Arctic, vast natural resources, and strategic military importance make it a coveted prize in the evolving geopolitical chess game of the 21st century. The melting ice due to climate change has only amplified this interest by opening new shipping routes and resource extraction opportunities. If the United States were to take over Greenland, the consequences would be far-reaching. Such a move would not only reshape Arctic politics but also provoke strong reactions from Denmark, Greenland's indigenous population, European nations, and other global players such as Russia and China. This script will explore the reasons behind the U.S. interest in Greenland, how such a takeover might occur, the immediate and long-term reactions from other nations, and the broader global implications. The United States' interest in Greenland is rooted in several key factors. Firstly, Greenland's location is of immense strategic military value. Situated between North America and Europe, Greenland is a critical node in missile detection and early warning systems. The U.S. Air Force operates Thule Air Base in northwest Greenland, which serves as a critical outpost for monitoring missile launches and space surveillance. Control of the island would strengthen U.S. military capabilities in the Arctic, especially as other powers, notably Russia, expand their military presence in the region. Secondly, Greenland is believed to contain vast deposits of natural resources, including rare earth minerals, oil, natural gas, uranium, gold, and other precious metals. These resources are becoming increasingly accessible due to the receding ice sheets caused by global warming. For a country like the United States, which depends on rare earth minerals for technology manufacturing and defense, securing access to these resources is strategically important. Thirdly, Greenland's potential new shipping lanes created by melting ice offer a faster maritime route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Control over these routes could provide significant economic and strategic advantages, including faster military deployments and control over international trade flows in the Arctic. The question of how the United States might actually take over Greenland is complex and fraught with legal and diplomatic challenges. Currently, Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Denmark handles Greenland's foreign policy and defense, while Greenland manages most domestic affairs. For the U.S. to take full control, Denmark's consent would be necessary under international law. An outright seizure without agreement would be viewed as an act of aggression, risking international condemnation and possibly conflict. However, political realities could shift. Denmark might be pressured or coerced into ceding control, especially if facing a larger geopolitical crisis or military threat. Greenland itself has been pushing for greater autonomy and even full independence from Denmark. If the Greenlandic government and people viewed American control as beneficial for economic development and security, they might support or acquiesce to such a takeover, complicating Denmark's position. The Trump administration's 2019 proposal to buy Greenland, which Denmark rejected, highlighted U.S. interest but also the diplomatic sensitivity of the issue. If instead of purchasing, the U.S. negotiated a gradual transfer of governance or declared a protectorate status, the process might be less confrontational, though still controversial. Should the U.S. move to take over Greenland, the international reaction would be swift and intense. Denmark would be the first and most vociferous opponent. Denmark has long-standing ties with Greenland and would likely view any American takeover as a violation of its sovereignty. Copenhagen might respond by severing diplomatic ties, suspending NATO cooperation, or rallying European allies against the U.S. action. Greenland's indigenous Inuit population would also have mixed responses. While some might welcome increased American investment, jobs, and security guarantees, others would resist losing political autonomy and cultural identity. The social fabric of Greenland could be stressed, potentially leading to protests, civil unrest, or demands for self-determination. The European Union would also condemn a US takeover. The EU has invested heavily in Greenland's infrastructure, mining projects, and environmental initiatives. Losing Greenland to US control would upset European strategic and economic interests in the Arctic. Brussels might impose economic sanctions or mobilize diplomatic pressure on Washington to reverse the move. Russia, viewing the Arctic as its sphere of influence, would be deeply alarmed. Moscow has been expanding its military footprint across the Russian Arctic, building bases and deploying missile systems. A US takeover of Greenland would place American military forces right at Russia's doorstep in the Arctic Ocean. In response, Russia might increase its own Arctic militarization, escalate naval patrols, and engage in cyber or hybrid warfare tactics against US interests. China, too, would see Greenland as a crucial asset, slipping away. Beijing has invested in Greenland's mining sector and views the Arctic as a key part of its Belt and Road Initiative. Losing access to Greenland would hinder Chinese ambitions in the region. China might respond with diplomatic protests, economic retaliation against US allies, or increased investments in rival Arctic countries like Russia and Norway. The NATO alliance, of which both the US and Denmark are members, would face significant internal strains. While NATO's core mission includes collective defense, unilateral US action in Greenland without alliance consensus could divide member states. Some European members might view the move as destabilizing and challenge US leadership within NATO, undermining alliance cohesion. The immediate global consequences of a US takeover would likely include an accelerated militarization of the Arctic. Russia and China would respond by reinforcing their military presence, increasing exercises, and deploying advanced weapon systems. The Arctic could become a hotspot of great power competition, increasing the risk of accidental clashes or deliberate confrontations. Competition over Greenland's natural resources would intensify, potentially sparking an economic rush with limited regard for environmental or indigenous rights. Large-scale mining, oil drilling, and infrastructure development would likely follow US control, boosting the economy but also threatening fragile Arctic ecosystems. Shipping lanes near Greenland could become militarized choke points. Control over these Arctic routes would allow the US to monitor or restrict maritime traffic, affecting global trade and increasing tensions with nations dependent on free passage. For Greenland itself, US control would bring massive changes. Politically, Greenland would lose much of its self-governance, potentially eroding Inuit cultural and political identity. Economically, the influx of American capital could modernize infrastructure and create jobs, but also risk creating dependency on the US and disrupting traditional lifestyles. Social changes would follow, as increased military presence and foreign workers might alter Greenlandic society. The environmental impact of intensified resource extraction and infrastructure development could threaten local ecosystems and long-term sustainability. In the broader global context, a US takeover of Greenland could provoke other nations to reconsider their Arctic policies. Countries like Canada, Norway, and Iceland might strengthen their alliances with the US or Russia, depending on perceived threats and opportunities. The Arctic Council, an intergovernmental forum for Arctic nations, could face paralysis or fragmentation as tensions rise. International organizations such as the United Nations might become arenas for diplomatic battles over Greenland's status. Attempts to condemn or reverse the US action through resolutions could occur, though enforcement would be difficult. Cyber warfare and information campaigns would likely escalate, with Russia, China, and other powers targeting US military and civilian infrastructure. Greenland itself could become a testing ground for new technologies and intelligence operations. The long-term impact on global geopolitics could be profound. Greenland could evolve into a heavily militarized zone, a resource extraction powerhouse, and a symbol of new Cold War-style rivalries. The risk of environmental degradation would grow, with potentially irreversible consequences for the Arctic climate and ecosystems. The loss of Greenland's autonomy might also fuel separatist and indigenous rights movements worldwide, as other territories watch the consequences of such a takeover. The precedent set by a US seizure of Greenland could encourage other powers to pursue territorial expansion, increasing global instability. Yet, there could be potential benefits if handled with care. U.S. stewardship might bring investment in Arctic research, environmental monitoring, and climate change mitigation technologies. Cooperative frameworks involving multiple Arctic nations might emerge to manage resources sustainably and reduce conflict. In conclusion, the hypothetical U.S. takeover of Greenland represents a dramatic shift in Arctic geopolitics with sweeping consequences. The island's strategic location, resource wealth, and symbolic importance make it a coveted prize in a rapidly changing world. Such a takeover would provoke strong reactions from Denmark, Greenland's people, European nations, Russia, China, and others, reshaping alliances and rivalries. While the scenario remains speculative, it underscores the growing importance of the Arctic region in global affairs. How nations manage Greenland and the broader Arctic will have profound implications for security, economics, indigenous rights, and environmental sustainability for decades to come. This story is a stark reminder that the frozen North is no longer a remote wilderness, but a key frontier where the future of international relations will be decided. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of global geopolitics and future scenarios.